And you don't have to necessarily do it all yourself. You just have to do enough of the thinking to like put a first draft together of what you think an action is and why that's the right action. And then you get to come to us and then we can do brainstorming based on that action. Then we can redirect you. Then we can do the thinking with you. But one of the things that I refuse to do is do the thinking for my team. Right. And so when you have a bias towards action and you give them that sense of ownership, then you're actually training people to think like you, which is, for any small business leader who's building a team, absolutely critical.
Are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now. And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I've got Namaan Mian with us today, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We are going to go deep on a number of things, but as we always do, Namaan, no one knows Namaan better than Namaan. So Namaan, give us your backstory, bring us up to speed, and let's get into this.
I love it. Richard, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor. Hello, everybody from Austin, Texas. My name is Namaan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Management Consultant. We're the world's largest provider of business strategy and analytic skills training. And so what I do is I work with business owners, with large Fortune 500 companies, and with just individuals looking to sharpen their business acumen on helping them become better problem solvers, better analytical thinkers, and better communicators. So in a nutshell, that's what I do. I come from a pretty diverse background. I started my career in government and politics and absolutely loved it. I actually still advise political campaigns today on messaging. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit. Maybe we won't, but started my career there. Left to do a little bit of work in the nonprofit space. I did my own consulting, and then about 10 years ago came over to Management Consultant and really built the training side of our business, the coaching side of our business, and also the media side. We have 4 million readers and listeners a year. So if you're interested even after this conversation and kind of staying in touch, come to managementconsultant.com and you'll see a lot of the content that I've written and that my team's put together as well for you. And a lot of it's completely free.
I love it. I love it. Of course, the thing that always piques my interest when someone says they did training, they built training platforms, because I'm a trainer. There's teachers and there's trainers. There's a big difference. So I always share like training, and here's my analogy. A teacher's going to tell you to do 25 push-ups, right? And maybe he'll say how verbally, and then he'll leave the room. I'm a trainer. I'm going to tell you you're going to do 25. Now get on your face. Let's start pushing. I'll be down there with you. I'm going to bang out the first couple. Then I'm going to stand there and finish counting to 25 for you. Make sure you get them done, because I'm based on results, right? So
100%.
That's how I am. So I'm excited to get into this kind of stuff because.
And I'm sorry, Richard. I was just going to say what a teacher will do is they'll tell you do 25 push-ups. What a trainer will do is they'll say, look, for you, you should do 25 push-ups at 7 a.m. because that's going to work better for you. And for you, like you should do it in the garage instead of your bedroom, because that's the environment in which you're going to be able to do what you need to do. Like a trainer sets the environment like for personal success. A teacher will just give you kind of high level concepts. They're helpful, but they might not necessarily apply to you the same way they apply to somebody else.
Yeah, well said, well said. It's like reading a book. Everyone's going to get knowledge out of it, but if you don't go apply it, well, it's just knowledge. It just sits there in the brain dump, So yeah, good stuff. So kind of fill us in a little bit. Like, let's start going down this road with the analytics and the data. Like, I really like what you do, and you work with a lot, large companies. Obviously, you work with individuals and stuff too, which is really great. But I always like to pull out the practicality of that, because some people, as soon as you say I work with Fortune 500 companies, they throw the wall up. Well, this doesn't, whatever. Like I'm never going to be a Fortune 500 company. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be a Fortune 500. So stop. Okay, I'm tell you, you're going to pull something from this. Okay, this is what's important. I don't want a Fortune 500 company either. Okay, but what I want is I want elements. I want elements of what they do that works, because I love the agility of small and medium-sized business. But if I can keep enhancing that, because you know as well as I do, you get into these larger corporate settings. I just call it the ship's too big to turn, or it's very difficult to turn. But they start layering things and they forget the good stuff they had, and they put something, the newer, shinier object on top of the old one when it was working just fine, just for newness sake. And the good stuff kind of gets buried. So yeah, let's kind of go down that road a little bit.
Hey, Richard, I help run a medium-sized business. One of the reasons I've stayed in this business for over a decade is because of that agility that you mentioned. I love being able to make a decision in the morning and act on it by the afternoon. That's not something that you're able to do necessarily in government. That's not something you're able to do in a Fortune 500 setting. There are benefits to those other environments. Certain types of people, I say, look, you belong in that kind of environment. It's not necessarily for me. And so like what you're saying 100% resonates with me. I think what's true for everybody, whether you're a director at American Express or whether you are running your own small or medium-sized business, what's true is that we live in a world that's drowning in data. Like we have more information at our fingertips than ever before. Even in our business, we've got dashboard upon dashboard. We've got like software upon software. Now you've got AI, right? That's like just giving you more information, more data. Like you never have a problem finding data. The challenge is that in a world that is drowning in data, it's not the data analysts who rule. It's not necessarily the people who know how to build the Excel spreadsheet, who know how to go in and do the modeling. That's useful and that's helpful. But the people who actually rise to the top are the people who know how to extract insights and narrative from the data. So my job as a business owner, as a leader, my job when I'm working with my clients, my job when I'm working with my partners is not to go and dump a whole bunch of information in their lap and say, look at what this model says. This AI says, look at what is happening in the market, because all that's going to do is it's going to paralyze them. They're going to have paralysis by analysis. My job is to say, look, I looked at all the information and here's what I think it means for you. Here's the insights. Here's the recommendations. Here's the actions that I think you should be taking based on the data. And we have a world that is crying out for advisors, right? Whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, whether you're leading a team internally, like people are looking to you for direction. Because we live in a world that has so many inputs coming our way all the time that we don't always know what to do with them. And so the people that can take a stand and say, here's my perspective based on the data are the people who win.
Yeah. Naaman, this is a big issue because you're right. Data everywhere. Okay. It's whatever they call it, the new oil, the new whatever, all this stuff. But if no one, and again, I think you're right about the analytical aspect, the analyst. You have to go, and this is a big kind of pet peeve of mine, you have to go to the business owner. I've had to deal with these companies where, like, you're giving me this stuff that means nothing to me. And I always use the term impressions. You're telling me how many impressions I'm getting. Like, can I take impressions to the bank? Do they take those in a deposit or is that checking or savings I'm putting that in? Like, you're telling me things that make geeks kind of fuzzy and warm. I said, they don't mean anything to me. They don't convert into sales. Like, I need to know those numbers. So if whoever the analyst is, if they came to me and said, well, what do you specifically need to know? Because it's going to come down to probably 3-4 things, like all this day. And you're like, I need a few numbers to guide my, small to mid-sized ship. We don't need, I got one guy at the wheel. So it's like, it's just somewhere to go.
The best leaders and the best business owners, Richard, they know how to separate signal from noise. And there's a lot of noise out there, but only a few signals. And so knowing what to pay attention to and when to pay attention to those things is really the secret sauce. And one of the things that I found, running my own small to medium sized business, I help run the company that we're talking about today. My wife and I own a jewelry business as well. Like we're heavily involved in the small to medium business size, One of the things that we've learned is that no matter what you do, no matter what hat you wear, you are always a salesperson. You are a salesperson for your ideas. You're a salesperson for your approach. You're a salesperson for your brand, no matter whether you're interacting with your own team or whether you're interacting with customers, prospects, et cetera. And the number one kind of tenet of storytelling is that I have to talk to my audience in a voice that resonates with them, and I have to give them a message that resonates with them. And so a lot of the issues that I run into with small and medium-sized business owners is they talk about the features they offer instead of talking about the outcomes that they drive.
Yeah, buddy.
And so that's the biggest hurdle that I work with business owners on a day-to-day basis is they're so good at what they do. They know so much about what they do. And I'm like, okay, great. You tell me about how you solve my problem. That's all I care about. And when we talk about storytelling, when we talk about communication, it really just boils down to that. Who's your audience? What do you want them to do? And why will they or won't they do that thing? And that's where you start like business problem solving, business communication.
It's so, and this is why I'm glad you're on my show, because I think exactly the same. Okay. No one is focused on the outcomes. And I use this like I go to websites. Okay. So do a lot of construction, work with a lot of construction guys, remodelers, all this stuff, plumbing, the whole deal. And I go to like a high-end home builder and I go to their website and I go, how many people, like you're down in Texas. I got a guy in Kerrville, not far from you. You're in Austin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's not too far away. I know. We're going to every one of them. Okay. And look at them. And guess what? Yeah, some have drone photos, some have regular photos, but all they talk about is themselves. Okay. They never talk about the customer. Never. Okay. Like, what are their pain points? What's the problem? Yeah. Guess what? Every high-end custom home builder is going to build a nice home. And if I'm dropping 4 million, I would hope so. Okay. Don't tell me how wonderful you are. Okay. Tell me about you understand. Because if this is my dream home, built other homes. I know all the problem. I know the misery of it. Okay. I know all the issues, the no communication stuff. Like you should be speaking to your customers in that way, in story form, like you're saying. So that's a critical aspect to this. Cause I created this little meme, so you'll like this. You go to the doctor, you got the pain face, the pain, the 1 to 10. Well, go to the 10, the scrunched up face, right? That's my client's problem. My potential client, right? So I got to know what that is. Then I have a padlock as the next picture and it's locked. And then the next picture is the happy face with the sunshine, the rainbows, the whole picture, right? That's the outcomes. That's what your life's going to look like when you work with me. I know your pain. I dig into your pain. I poke your wound. I do all that. Then I show what happens when you work with me. Did I tell you how I do it? I didn't tell you how I do it. Okay. Because in reality, that's what I get a check for. That's what unlocks the lock. Right. But until they understand I know their pain and I have the outcome, the benefit, they don't care how many skid steers I have. They don't care how many BTUs the furnace is. They don't care about that stuff. They want to know, be able to do it. Can I be comfortable in my home with my family? Well, when my friends come over, will they be astounded? Can I have the unbelievable 20-person banquet? And be poolside, whatever it is, right? That's what we want to talk about. That's what no one does. So I love what you're saying.
I 100% agree. The reason I'm paying you $4 million is so I don't have to think about how many BTUs are in the furnace, right? Like that's the whole point. One of the things that I think about often, as I talk to customers, as I talk to prospects, is I just imagine that they're asking one question in the back of their minds. And that question is, so what? Like, why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I talking to you? Why are we having this interaction? And every single interaction I have with a customer or a prospect is an opportunity for me to build trust. And the more that I can answer that hypothetical so what question that's in the back of their minds, the faster I'm going to be able to build trust, the more I'm going to be able to drive alignment, the more they're going to like working with me. And so I think the same is true for this podcast. Like when people are listening to this, probably within the first 2 to 5 minutes, you, the audience, had a similar thought. So what? Like, does this guy have anything to say that's going to help me? Does this guy have anything to say that's going to be interesting to me? Is this going to be worth the next 45 minutes or an hour of my time? And if it's not, I'm just going to stop listening right now. Like you as the audience probably had the same question, whether you realized it or not. And so our job in the first 2 to 5 minutes was to try and answer that for you so that you stick around. And we'll find out later if we were successful or not. That's but right. The same is true for all your customers. The same is true for all your prospects. The same is true for the teams that you manage. They're all asking the same fundamental question, which is, what's in it for me? And so the faster I can get to that, the more I'm going to be able to keep their attention, and the more I'm going to be able to talk to them about the things that they care about and move forward faster.
Yeah. And I'm going to add another so. So you got so what? And then you're going to add, to finish it off, so that. So that.
Love that.
Don't have to be right. So it's always the so that's the next thing. You're exactly right. Like if you notice when you come on my podcast, I don't read your bio. And that's 100% intentional. Okay. You got to deliver the goods. Okay. I have a really impressive bio. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Like you do something long enough, you're going to have some stuff, right? I'm going to listen to a conversation. So if you can't talk about yourself, Okay, right in the get-go. I don't know where we're going to go with this, right? So, and you hit the points, right? We get into, we roll into a conversation, and we deliver the goods. You already have, even at this short time in the thing, we've already given them a lot of great stuff, and you're exactly right. So you're right on point with that, and I really like that aspect. And until people start thinking that way, to jump back a little bit with all that data, you're never going to apply it properly. Right? You got, like you said, you don't know. You said, I can't remember how you said it, but it was really cool. What'd you say about it's not how you use it? You had a really cool phrase. I wish I wrote it down. You're not going to remember either. You're like me. We're like impromptu piano players. Once we play it, it's gone forever.
I need like a producer in my ear telling me all the
That,
cool things that I said,
right,
you
right.
know?
But yeah, me too. But it doesn't matter. It was really cool. But it's really what, in general, is what you do with it, right? It's how you're going to apply this data. So if we don't know what our outcomes are, all that's nothing. It's just a pile of numbers and whatevers, right? So I think it's what I like that you've brought up, Naman, is that we really have to understand who we're serving, how we're trying to serve them, and then use the tools to enhance that experience.
Absolutely.
That's what it's really about.
And what that helps me be as a business owner is hypothesis driven, right? My most scarce resource isn't money, it's time. You know, and I tell everybody that'll listen in my own business all the time, it's like my management capacity is like the thing that I need to protect the most, because I can't be managing everything. Like I need to be focused on the most important things. And so when I'm take this approach, I'm more hypothesis driven because I'm thinking, okay, in a perfect world, what happens coming out of this interaction? In a perfect world, what happens coming out of this project? And then I'm able to work backwards, and I'm able to go find the right data that supports that outcome instead of starting at the data layer, looking at all the information I could look at, and then never knowing when I've looked at enough. That's the problem with the world that we live in, right? It's like I never know when I'm done. And so I have to be hypothesis driven. I have to start with the end in mind first and say, here's what I want to achieve. Now can I go find the data to back up that particular outcome or that particular message? And if I can't find the data, then I reshape the outcome. So this is not an excuse to be intellectually dishonest. It's not an excuse to fall into the confirmation bias trap. It's just the scientific method. I have to start with the end in mind. I have to start with a hypothesis. Otherwise, I'm going to get so lost in the weeds. I'm never going to be able to come up for air. And my job as a leader is to be able to look at the big picture and kind of drive everybody, whether it's my team, whether it's my customers, whether it's my partners, towards a common goal.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We do that a lot. That we do, strategic vision, exit strategy. We go all the way, the whole business, go to the end and reverse engineer, just like you said, and figure out like, well, how long and how much? Two things. How long am I going to do this and how much I want when I get done? If you could just start with those two things and then reverse engineer it, you've got a really good plan you can put together. And similarly to what you were just saying, I think when you go to the end of these problems, whether you're setting a goal, a 30, 60, 90-day goal, okay, here's what we want to achieve, reverse engineer, how are we going to do that? Who's accountable? Where do you go to get the resources? Right now you start to understand, right, what you actually need. Right. And I think we're going to hit this a number of times in this thing, but I think it's worth reiterating is, again, if we're analyzing, too much data is going to drag a business down. So if we use the ship analogy, it's an anchor. Okay, that's going to be dragging when you should be sailing. Okay, it's going to be snagging on stuff and slowing you down. So I like it because when you get the right data, it gives you a direction to pivot a lot of times. And, I've noticed being on so many podcasts as a guest and both a host, you start to hear words when they become like buzzwords, almost like pivot's one of those. Pivot has become a buzzword. Okay. Now, I don't know if I'm the first one to say that, but I'm going to take credit. Okay. It's a buzzword, pivot, but we get it. And I'm a boxer. Okay. So I pivot all the time. 3 inches, turn. I just change the angle so I can get someone squared off and land some punches. Right. But we have to be able to do that because that's the reality, buzzword or not. Like we have to be able to adapt as the information's coming in. Okay, it's not, we got some information. Let's read it. Let's send it down the chain. Let's talk about this. Let's say, no, we need to react, like you said. We get in the morning, make the reaction in the afternoon. That's my kind of thinking as well. It's just we make decisions quickly, but we're based on analytics.
I think for any small to medium sized business, and the way that I define that is like, honestly, like businesses under $100 million and probably even bigger than that in annual revenue, like your number one differentiator is your speed to market and your speed to solution. And so I was just having a conversation with my leadership team about this morning, about reiterating that one of the things that sets us apart in the market, in our market, is that we make decisions quickly and we iterate. And what I'm looking for is I'm not looking for the perfect decision. It almost never exists. I'm looking for the decision that gets me 80% of the way there. And most of the time, I know my market well enough, I know my business well enough to where I'm able to make decisions quickly and be 80% right. Like, my goal when I make decisions isn't to prove that I'm right. It's not to prove that I did a lot of work or to prove that I did a lot of thinking. It's to achieve some kind of goal. And so usually 80% right gets me to the goal I'm looking for. When the faster that I make decisions, the faster the market gives me feedback. So I'm able to go to customers, I'm able to go to prospects, I'm able to go to partners, and they tell me, you know what, I like this, I don't like this. You know what, it landed like this, and there's an unintended consequence. Okay, great. Now we can pivot, right? But exactly. I never actually would have gotten to version 2 if I hadn't started with version 1. And so one of the other things that I really focus my work with business owners on is just do something. The market will tell you if you're going in the right direction or not, but paralysis by analysis will kill you every time.
Yeah, it's so important to understand that. I used to write a lot of blogs, and one of my favorites was, it was about speed, right? Speed, that's how you make money, right? People love fast things, fast horses, fast boats, fast cars, right? They like things to go fast. Well, your decisions, your estimates, everything you do in your business, I don't mean sloppy. I mean speed, like create the system. If I'm going to go, and I use that at a roofing company, if I'm going to have to give a roofing estimate, I'm closing the deal when I get there. I'm giving the estimate, I'm writing it out. Come on, man. We got satellite, we got measurements, I don't have to do much. It's a roof with 7 different things that go to it. It's like people are going away and leaving for 2 weeks and sending them an estimate via email. Okay, another whole mistake. We talk about that something else, but I'm like, I literally there, do it, speak, do my whole thing, close the deal. And this is a true story. I'm walking out with a woman. I closed the deal, do her roof. Right? I got about 15 grand. Walking out to her mailbox. She opens her mailbox. My truck's out there. She goes, "Oh, look, it's an estimate from another roofer who was out 2 weeks ago." And I'm like, "Well, I guess you don't need that." She goes, "You're right. The garbage can was right there." She tossed it in the garbage can. Okay, speed's where it's at.
I can't tell you, Richard, how many deals I've won just because I was the first to respond and because I was the fastest to respond. Yeah, I also think that I'm really good and our company's really good, but there's a lot of people who are really good in any given space, but it's that element of speed. If you're not able to, respond to an estimate quickly, if you're not able to respond to a prospect quickly when they haven't paid you yet, then that just tells me that when they have paid you, you're going to be even slower. And so, like, the number one kind of biggest differentiator for us, like in our sales process, has actually been speed. And then the second biggest differentiator has been storytelling. We're clearer, we're better at talking about how we can help our customers. But I'd say number one is actually just speed. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say speed attracts money.
Mm-hmm.
That was the actual title of my blog post. Speed attracts money. And there's like, what? And people, it's like you and I seem to be wired for that. Right, we kind of get it. We understand. I think it's part of a personality makeup too. Okay, like we're probably those guys who are driving at 140 miles an hour, and when I like it, I use I'm in the Ferrari, right, doing 140, and then little Miss Sally or whoever from accounting comes over and wants to talk to me. She's driving a Honda doing 40, and wants me to slow down 100 miles an hour to talk to her. I struggle with that. Okay, I do it because it's respectful. Okay, but if I'm slowing down to talk to you, you better be ready. Okay, so it's just it's kind of who we are. We kind of move at that pace. But regardless if you think you're that person or not, this speed to implementation is really important. Like you're saying, because that 80-20 thing, get 80%, let the market tell you what's wrong, fix it. So you're already in the market. You just fix it, because unless you're like, no one ever heard of you and it's your first day making something, putting out there, they have grace. If you've built a client base and you're coming out with the new thing and you're coming out 80% and you're literally asked for feedback, like, don't forget you can do that. Say, hey, we got this thing new. I'd like poke some holes in it. Tell me what's wrong. Like now they're like, oh, well, we like doing that. Everyone's drawn to the negative.
Well, and if you do that the right way, it actually enhances your credibility.
Exactly.
When I walk into a discovery meeting, the first meeting of a sales process, I come with a hypothesis on what I think the customer's problem is, even though I've never met them before, because I know my market and I know like other similar customers. And then I ask them, does this apply to you? Yes or no? And honestly, it never 100% applies to them, but it 80% applies to them. And so it actually enhances my credibility because I've come with a perspective. And then because I'm able to take feedback in a way that's positive, I'm able to say, hey, great, like tell me where I missed it. Let's fix it right now. That actually builds trust. So, and good decisions compound over time. I think we think about compounding in terms of investing, in terms of money, right? But decisions compound as well. And so the faster you're able to get something out in the wild, the faster you're able to get feedback, the faster you're able to get to a version 2, a version 3. There's a compounding effect to that. And that becomes a moat for your business because while everybody else is still stuck on V1, you're now on version 3 or version 4. And so the way that I think about this decision making is really like I think about investing is the more that I can do it, the higher I can increase my frequency. That compounding effect over time is going to play to my advantage.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a really good way to think of it. And I think that's an excellent takeaway of all the things we said now too. Is this you can't, and most entrepreneurs they're pretty good at calculated risk taking, right? They get it. They're going to be out there. They understand. But I think it's kind of like, when you think you've gone as far as you can go physically, you still got like 40% more capacity. Okay, like you haven't. You think you're going to die, but you're not going to die. You got a long way till you die. So you can do a lot more. So I apply that because we kind of have this warrior mindset with our business, honing entrepreneur warriors on the battlefield of business. Well, you got to push. If you're breathing, you're in the fight. So we want to get out there. We want to take ground as quickly as we can. Yeah, maybe we got to change direction a little bit or whatever, but we're holding the ground. We're there. We're there first, right? So now we can continue to move forward, watch our 6, but just get this stuff done. And that's where the advantage, like you said, that's where it begins to compound because you've got that room.
There's an incredible first mover advantage in many markets and in many industries. And it's not necessarily the best people that win, it's the first people that win. And so don't misunderstand me. What I'm not saying is do everything, but I'm saying in the things that are your core business, your core competency, the faster that you can make decisions, the faster that you can iterate, and the more that you can focus on getting things directionally right instead of perfect, you're going to start to see the compounded benefits of that over time.
That's good. So on that, this is a good little pivot here too. So your main thing, okay, because a lot of businesses, they get their main thing, they start, they're going well, and then the old shiny object fairy comes along and they start getting distracted with these other opportunities, I'm air quoting opportunities, right? And they start to lose it. And I like what you're saying. So let's dig into a little bit on the main thing being the main thing, because that's how you move faster. Every let me take some time to look at this opportunity. Oh, my best friend said now that I'm making money, he's got an opportunity for me. You know what I mean? They want me to veer over left here. And I've seen it take out a lot of businesses or grind them to a halt. And other people, the people who aren't affected by that, pass them. Just like you're saying, the guys who are going to be first, they might not be better. You are better at what you do, but they're going to beat you to the field. And that now they can set up a defensive position, right? And hold you back. Because they get there first. So is that one of your experiences? Do you see that kind of how people get kind of taken away from their main thing?
Yeah, a shiny object syndrome is a real thing. One of the things that I learned early on in leadership is that my job often was to say no. And what I ended up doing was empowering the rest of my team to say yes. Say, hey, go out, think of new ideas, look for new opportunities. I want them to have that mindset. But ultimately, 80 to 90% of those new opportunities, don't either make sense for us as a business at all, or they don't make sense for us at this time. And so, my job became to say no. And then the challenge for me was, how do I say no in a way that doesn't kill the entrepreneurial spirit in my team? And so there I have to acknowledge kind of the effort and the thinking that they did. I have to acknowledge the merit of their idea, and then kind of not shoot down their process, but just shoot down that specific idea, right? So not be like, hey, I can't believe that you came to me with that. That's so stupid. You should just be doing your actual work, right? Hey, I really appreciate that you put some thought into it. I really appreciate that you saw an opportunity. I agree with you. There's an opportunity there. I just don't think that it's right for our business at this time, right? And so a lot of my job as a leader has actually been saying no. I think that sometimes, once you have your yes, it becomes much easier to say no to everything else.
Right.
And so kind of,
Exactly.
identifying, okay, like this is my core business. This is my cash cow. And then I can strategically look for other adjacencies and other opportunities that are funded by this cash cow. But it doesn't mean that I run after the first thing that looks good. Right. So there's a chance to take calculated risks. And Richard, I'll just tell you the way that I decide like how to go into a new line of business or a new adjacency is I honestly often I wait for an existing customer to ask me, right? Oh, do you guys also do this? And then the answer becomes, yes, we do. Right. Even if like it's not something we've ever formally done or structured before, because now I already have proof of concept that there's demand. I already have customer trust. And now I have like a customer who's willing to pay me to develop an MVP. Right. And so like I actually wait for customers to come to me and ask me if we do a certain thing. And that's how I start to decide to figure out, okay, where we're going to expand and how we're going to expand.
Yeah, it's really important. I use a couple things similarly. Like first is our exit strategy. I use that. So my big thing is like, okay, opportunity, get it. Does it get me closer and faster to my exit strategy, or does it detract from it? If it detracts, it's a hard no. It's a big business filter for me, right? It's really simple. You can make those decisions. The second thing, again, is going to be spokes on the hub. Okay, you got a hub, you got a wheel. Does it feed into my core business? Okay, I can't have some random oh yeah, oh, we're gonna start doing Mary Kay or something. You know what I mean? When I build machine parts, you know what I'm saying? It's like I'm not gonna do something like that, right? So it's like have to understand that. And like I love what you're saying about your team. You want them doing the research. Okay, that's really important. That's good. They're doing that, right? Then because they bring you a formulated idea, right? So it's easy and quick for you to say yes or no, right? You go back to what I call your 5%, the 5% of the business only you can do. That's what you're focused on, right? So you want to make sure but you got them out doing that because you also do want to look for new opportunities. Like, let's not be completely blinder driven, right? There's going to be things that come. Like you said, your customers are going to start to request things, and that's important. Okay. You should be looking, as you said earlier, for that customer feedback. We want that when we go in the market. We want them to know, because that's free research. They're bringing you ideas like, I need this. They're bringing you a problem they're asking if you can solve. And that is what we do as a business, is solve people's problems. And if you get enough of those people asking that's a problem that needs to be solved. Let's move in that direction.
When I was early on in my career, Richard, I didn't understand the power of listening. And I didn't
Amen,
understand,
brother.
I didn't understand that people they would literally tell you what their problem was. They would tell you why they didn't like the other people that they'd worked with, and they'll tell you what they want to spend money on. And like the less that I talk and the more that I listen, the better I get at asking open-ended questions and just letting people go off. There's no substitute for that. I tell business owners all the time, it's not very difficult, honestly, to make money. It's not very difficult to find paying customers. People will literally tell you what they want and how much they're willing to pay for it if you'll just ask them and if you'll just be willing to listen.
Right. I always tell people listening is a silent form of flattery. I said, just think about it that way. Like the less you talk, the more flattered they're going to be. Okay. Like it seems counterintuitive, but who doesn't want to talk about themselves? Okay. Just listen. And then you listen for the right time to ask the question. And if you want to get really good, become a podcast host and you get to do that. That's what podcasting taught me, was how to listen. Ask my wife. I'm a different and better man now. Okay. Since I started podcasting a number of years ago, but you really do, because now you have to and it becomes a skill. It's a learned skill. It's like anything else. So don't think it's not you don't have the possibility. You just got to kind of, as I tell my share, you got to kind of put the ego in a box. You know what I mean? You got to kind of it's not about you. You know what I mean? If you can truly be customer centric and really listen to them, like you said, they're going to tell you everything they want. They're going to tell you exactly how to, make them happy and make them get out their money and give it to you.
And listening isn't passive, right? I still come to the conversation with a perspective. I still come to a conversation with energy. It just means that I'm willing to be redirected. And I think, that's how I would define, what a lot of people call active listening. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, Richard, you're talking about kind of the hub and spoke kind of business model, right? And I think of it like a flywheel. If I'm going to, go into like a new line of business or an adjacency to my existing business, I want to make sure that like it feeds other parts of my business, and other parts of my business feed it. And so, for example, like I'm not just on this podcast today because I like being on podcasts, right? Like this is fun. I enjoy talking to you, right? But like there's a flywheel effect because like there's learnings that I'm getting from my other clients. There's learnings I'm getting from my business that I'm able to share. And then I'm learning things on this podcast that I'm going to be able to go back and take to my clients, my customers, my team. And, I'm also hopefully going to be able to find people that, want to stay connected with me. I'm going to be able to build my network. Right. And so like there's a flywheel effect. And so is going on podcasts my core business? No. But does it help feed the core business, and does the core business help feed it? Yes. And so kind of looking for those flywheel opportunities is really what I'm all about.
Yeah, I found that out. You talk unintended consequences from podcasting. So had podcasts, hundreds of episodes. Okay, great. Not really guesting. Then all of a sudden I'm like, well, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to guest. And then I'm on like 200 podcasts and I'm doing all this stuff. And these are really, all of a sudden people can find who Richard Walsh is. My kids come to me, Dad, look, you used to not exist on the internet. Look, and now and it's funny. Namaan, it's like there's 4 Richard Walsh pictures, right? I'm one of them, and there's 3 other ones. They're all black and white. I'm the only color one. I go, it's been a while since it's been a quality Richard Walsh. Okay, so these guys are actors, whatever. So, and now my son showed me the other day. He goes, well, look, you're like in slot number 2 now, or number 1. I used to be like kind of the 4th. He's like, you're moving up, Dad. You're moving up.
I love that.
But you don't get it because people are out listening and people are sharing my name. Like your name is going to be on my podcast. It's going to have a description. It's going to be in a transcript, and all that's on the web, right? So when people are looking for stuff, oh, someone has talked about Namaan for a long time. Like he spent an hour. He was here times 30, right? Like all of a sudden you've got 60 hours, 100 hours of, being on, in the world, right? And it kind of grabs it. So it is important. There is that, again, back to the compounding effect. That stuff matters. It's establishing authority, recognition, all that kind of stuff. But you're right. It's not like you're going to walk away with a bag full of money, right? But it all leads back to the main thing.
Well, and to your point, Richard, right? Like if you had waited until you were an expert podcaster to start, you never would have started, because you actually only get better by doing. And I think that's the other thing that I try to impart to the people that I work with is like, yes, learning is important. Knowledge is important. I'm all about that. I'm reading all the time, but all learning really is tactile. You learn by doing. And I think a lot of people, they stop themselves from doing what they want to do or what they could do because they feel like they don't have the head knowledge. And I'm like, why don't you just go ahead and start? 2 people are probably going to listen to your first podcast episode, but you'll get better at it. And, you do 20, 30, 40. Now you're good enough to go be a guest. And because you started doing the podcast, now you show up when people search for Richard Walsh. There are probably 7 other Richard Walshes that were thinking about doing the same thing, but they didn't. Right. And there are probably 7 other people in your space, right? Like sharpen the spear. Like, y'all do great work. Like you put out great content. Like there are other people that could put out similar content. Like, it's not like it's a proprietary like algorithm that you're talking about, but you actually just started talking about it and you got better over time. The same is true for me. And I think it's just an illustration of how starting is oftentimes the biggest hurdle that business owners face. And if you can get over that hurdle, it's all downhill from there.
I'm telling you, I wanted to write a book. Okay, I'll write a book. 3 weeks later, the book's finished. It becomes a bestseller because I put pen to paper, or fingers to keys, whatever you want to call it. It's like I did that and then I have that. And I have a second book. And it's like, because I did it. They say it's 82% of all people want to write a book. 2% do it.
Mm.
Okay. I love being in the 2%. It's a
absolutely.
good thing, right? But just because you take the action, and I tell people, to your point, whenever you start something new, podcasting, business, whatever, we all get to start at the same place, and that's known as awful. Okay, we all start at awful, and then we have nowhere to go but up, so you're going to get better. But like you said, you start, and I tell you when I said I became a better listener because of the podcast, that was because I did it. And I learned like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Because I did a couple solo episodes and I'm like, well, these are horrible. I could do it, but I'm like, I'm not really interested in that. I really like to engage with others and bring that. And it's way more interesting and engaging. So yeah, I don't do solo things because I don't care. Your Facebook Live, I did a few of those. I'm like, well, even this is nonsense. I'm talking to nobody. Yeah, I got 100 listeners. I'm not talking to anybody. So I started to really I get guests only. We come on, we're gonna knock this out. It's gonna be fun, and I'll get great guests. I'll get mediocre guests. I'll get awful guests. Okay, it's all part of the game. Oh, but I learned how to be an even better host to raise them up, because I'll get guests where you have to pull it out of them. But that's my job. Okay, they're on. They may not be in their first couple of guest appearances. They don't know what they need to do. I'll pull it out. So you'll watch it change. It's pretty cool. You watch them like if they're pretty reserved and quiet. And they got these short answers, and I start to pull it out. And you're 20 minutes in. All of a sudden, it's like they're opening up. They're having a good time. They're relaxed. They go, there you go. And then I get done. I tell them, you see what we did in that second half? You need to do that on your whole appearance. So the next one you go on, man, do that. You be that person, man, and you'll be on a lot of podcasts.
I love that. If I could just summarize what we've been talking about, over the last few minutes, I think the theme is have a bias towards action. And that's been the number one thing that's set our business apart. It's something that, I talk to leaders inside of the Fortune 500 about, and I talk to small business owners about is, one of the things that sets you apart is a bias towards action. I don't want to come and discuss ideas. I want to come and discuss actions. Our team knows this. If you come to me with an idea, we don't get to meet. If you come to me with a recommendation on something you think we should do, then we get to meet, and then I'll give you feedback on that idea, on that action. And so we don't do whiteboarding sessions in our business. Like we don't get around and do little thought bubbles and think about ideas. It's like, if you want to do something, you think about it from beginning to end. Then you come to me, you tell me what you want to do. You walk me through your process from beginning to end. And then I can readjust your thinking. I can readjust the action you want to take, or I can just say no. But we don't talk about ideas. We don't even talk about problems. We talk about solutions and actions. And having that bias towards action, I think, is critical for any business leader, whether you're a leader of a business unit inside of a Fortune 500 company or whether you are a small business owner. It's thinking through not just what are the insights, not just what can I learn, not just what's a good idea, but how do I apply it? And if I don't draw the connection between insight to application, a lot of times I'm just wasting my time.
Yeah, because there has to be an outcome. It goes back to what we said earlier. What is the outcome? An idea doesn't have an outcome, right? It's an idea. It's like, so I have this equation. It's D plus A minus E in parentheses, and then times C equals results. So is desire, okay? And you know where desire lives, right? That's on your pillow in your bed. That's where desire lives, all right? Plus action, that's the A, minus the E is excuses. Okay, times C. C is competition. So how do we compete with this? How do we run with this? And that's what gives you results. You put those things together. Okay, and the A is huge. The A and the E is the two big ones. Action. Okay, desire, action minus excuses. So there's only achievement. Again, not perfect. We're into imperfect action. That's what that is. Do it, get it out there. I mean, you might be competing against yourself, another team, another company, whatever that is, but there's always an element of competition. Get your sales numbers up, get your close rates up, whatever that is all involves competition. So it's really important to have that mindset you build in your team, right? Because that's our job as the owners, as the captain of the ship, so to speak. We have to train them to do what either, not necessarily what we do, but like how we want this run. How do you already described it. You go do this, this, and this, and it ends in an action. And that's when you come to me, when you have the action. We don't play in concepts. Concepts are cool. That's R&D stuff. Get away from me. I don't need to talk about that. Okay, like it's fun, but it gets me nowhere. It's the proverbial rocking horse. Right? It makes a lot of motion, stays in motion, but doesn't make any progress. We don't do rocking horses.
I can't afford it. I can't afford just to talk about ideas. I can't afford just to talk about problems. And so one of the ways that I try to, and our leadership team tries to, impart an ownership mindset into our team is by actually saying, look, we empower you to think of a solution from beginning to end. And you don't have to necessarily do it all yourself. You just have to do enough of the thinking to like put a first draft together. of what you think an action is and why that's the right action. And then you get to come to us and then we can do brainstorming based on that action. Then we can redirect you. Then we can do the thinking with you. But one of the things that I refuse to do is do the thinking for my team. Right. And so when you have a bias towards action and you give them that sense of ownership, then you're actually training people to think like you, which is, for any small business leader who's building a team, absolutely critical.
Yeah, and you hit the point right there. I was going to say the same thing, because here they come up with the action, they go through the thing, they bring it to you, then you workshop it. Okay, you're going to workshop and figure it out. And what they're doing is learning how to make their actions better. So they're not just coming to action, then you're saying yes or no. You're like tweaking it and doing this. Now they're going, oh, I didn't even think of that. That's teaching them what you know, right? So next problem, they go through their phase, the concept, they go through this. Now they're bringing a more complete action. Every time they go through that process, you're going to get a more complete action. And pretty soon they walk in your office. It's a 60-second conversation, and it's like, get it, go. Like, I love it. I mean, that's why I try to teach a lot of my clients too, is like, you need to empower them to solve problems. You don't come to me until you're at this point. This is the point you come knock on my door, if ever. Right? I'm like, if you train that becomes part of the culture. Anyone new gets it right from the get-go. This is how we do it. You start to hire for people who already have that mindset. I don't want the brain dead working here. Okay, I want people to have some initiative, right, and be able to understand that I solve problems. I like to do that kind of stuff, so I love it.
One thing I'll share with you, Richard, and maybe you can include it in the comments or the show notes or however you do things, but there's a couple of frameworks that we utilize with our team and with our partners and clients that they find really helpful for that kind of problem solving and for communicating solutions. And so one of them is called SCQ, and then one of them is called the pyramid principle. And so I'll share some of the writing we've done on those two concepts. And if people are interested in learning more, they can click through and find some of those resources. I think sometimes people just need like a framework or a structure to start in, because they have just a swirl of ideas that they don't know how to get out on paper. And so just having a framework to put them in can help them clarify their own thinking. And so those are two that I found are incredibly helpful.
That's awesome, because we often talk as to business owners is we need to take your inner genius and put it on the paper. We got to get that out of your head. If you want to be free from this every day, daily operation, we got to take that inner genius and put it down here so we can give it to others, right? Structure it, give it to them, build out these systems and processes so they can do it. And sometimes that's a real wrestling match. You know what I mean? Some people just, they won't let go. You're like, come on, man, it's okay. Trust me. You're not losing control. You're gaining control. Okay. You're going to gain control if you'll do this, because you'll be able to focus on, like you're doing, your 5%. You'll be able to focus on strategy and growth and the things that really, really can, help your people earn more, make more, live better lives, enhance your customers' experiences and everything else. And you can have that freedom and impact you've always wanted to have because you're a business owner, right? So, yeah, I love it. I'll put those in the show notes for sure. Whatever you got, whatever links you have.
Absolutely. For me, I've just figured out over time that if stuff's in my head, it's not 100% clear. And so I've got to get it out on paper. And these frameworks just help me get it out on paper. Again, I think people who are listening are probably going to sense a theme, which is that getting it done the first time is better than getting it perfect. And so the goal isn't to get it out of my head perfect. The goal is just to get it out. And then I can refine and iterate from there. And so that's what I want to teach my teams to do. It's what we teach our salespeople to do. It's what we teach our marketers to do. It's what we teach our product people to do. It's what we teach our customer service people to do. Like, it doesn't matter what function you're in. What the job requires of you is clarity of thinking. And what the job requires of you is to be action oriented. And so to get your thoughts out of your head onto paper so you can see them, and then so you can have other people pressure test them, is critical. And sometimes you just need a tool to help you do that.
Let me ask you a question on this. I was kind of thinking about this because I was working with a client yesterday. We work on hiring processes, right? Like what we do, what questions we ask, we have all this stuff built out. But curious with what you do with that mindset, your philosophy, if you will, okay, of the action of problem solving. When you're interviewing people to come on the team, do you have kind of a filter to see if, like, do they resonate with that mindset, that culture kind of thing? Or is there, you're kind of like, hey, you're not going to be a fit because they're not grabbing onto the concept. Is that something you'd see like oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that. Or is it like, I'm kind of that guy who just wants to show up and be quiet in the corner?
Absolutely. Last Friday, I had a conversation with someone who might be coming, onto our team, in a senior role. And I walked them through the culture really, really clearly, which was we have a bias towards action. You bring us solutions, not problems. And we don't get together and like whiteboard ideas together. We get together and we give feedback on potential solutions. That's the culture. We move fast. We're not afraid to break things. If you are overly analytical, you won't thrive here. I think sometimes what's really important in the hiring process is to tell people why they might not be a good fit. Because I think everyone talks about here's why you'll be a good fit here. But I don't hear many people talking about here's why you won't be a good fit. And I think sometimes it's good just to clarify that. Hey, you know what? Like there's places where if you're overly analytical, you should you'll thrive there, right? But it's not here. There's places if you're like a really like deep thinker, you'll thrive there, but it's not here. Right. There's places if you're like this, you'll thrive there, but it's not here. And I think that really helps clarify, not just for our team, but for the candidate, kind of if they'll be a good fit. And so we're incredibly honest with them about kind of what the expectations are, the expectations for ownership. So that's number one, right? Is there like resonance with that kind of mindset? And then number two, actually for our business, and this is going to be different for every business, but the number one proxy that I found for success in our environment is writing ability, which sounds so strange, but I'm like, I will ask people to do a writing test because that gives me a sense of how clearly they think and how clearly they communicate. And those are the two things that I want to know more than anything else. Are you a logical, linear thinker? And can you communicate what's in your head in a way that gains buy-in and motivates action? Again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Everybody's a salesperson. So, right. Whether you're in a customer facing role or not, are you going to be able to get buy-in even amongst our team on what you're trying to do? Or are you going to come to me like every other week complaining to me about how other people on the team aren't giving you what you need? And so I found writing ability to be a really good proxy for clarity of communication, clarity of thinking. And those are the two hallmarks of success inside of our organization.
That's awesome. I was thinking the same thing. Like I always tell my clients, you're selling this job position. Like that's selling too. Like to get someone to work here, you have to sell this. I tell them on the other side, they also have to earn the right to work here. We don't do just a simple interview. We don't check for a pulse only. So it's like you're saying, and some questions I ask, I go, well, what was your favorite job? What you love about it? What you hate about it? I walk through, if they've got a job history, you walk through that stuff because what they hate might be a main thing you do here. You don't know, but you ask them this. I mean, I've seen people in job interviews, they don't even know what the company they're interviewing for does, because that's one of the questions. Do you know what we do here? Oh, you just went to the dollars per hour. Oh, that was your criteria for working here. Get out. I'm going to tell you how funny this was once. Like I saw it happen. They're in the conference room with this cabinet maker. Beautiful, huge pictures all over the wall of what? Cabinets. All the stuff they make. And they asked what do you do. They had no idea. You're sitting surrounded by what we do. And I'm like, you talk no self-awareness. Just let me walk you to the car because I'm afraid you'll get lost on the way there. Okay. So I'm just like, it's just, as owners, you get all these great stories because you're going to see it all. But I love that you've got these litmus tests, whatever you want to do, right? You're going to have these processes, and it's really important for people to understand, like, you need to create that. Like, it's a whole nother show on hiring processes, but you need to, like you said, how are they a cultural fit? And the number one problem is you probably don't have a culture at your business. You haven't gone, hey, we're about fast action. We're about this, right? We're about action, the ability to take action. Well, if people don't know that, everyone in the company should know that. If I walk into your company, grab someone by random, ask them what's the main thing here, and they'll say, well, action, speed to action, because I tell people too who I say, if they suffer from anxiety, I go action alleviates anxiety.
It does.
Do something, make a decision. And most of anxiety is caused by the inability to make a decision. I shouldn't, I don't know. Oh, I'm like, just make a decision, it's just, it doesn't answer at all. Well, my goodness, it makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference. Overthinking leads to anxiety. And to me, I tell the business owners and the professionals we work with all the time is a decision is almost always better than indecision. And so because if you make a decision first of all, you're a subject matter expert. Like you have experience, you have perspective. Like it's probably directionally correct. I think one of the things that I want to do through this episode is just kind of give people confidence that you probably know more than you think you do. And your instinct is probably stronger than you think it is. And so you make a decision, it's probably directionally correct. And then once you make a decision, it really starts to clarify for you where you're right and where you're wrong, and you can adjust. And, until you make the decision, it's very difficult to project where you're right, where you're wrong, what direction you're going to go. Just taking a step out in any direction helps you figure out if it's the right one or not. And then you can use that word that you love. You can pivot from there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think what's important, and I'll use your company culture specifically, is you're giving them the grace, okay, that it's not going to be perfect, and you just fix it. Like that's the key. People are, if it's wrong, I'm going to get yelled at. I'm going to get chewed out because I didn't do this right. I had a guy, like some of them were yelling at everyone, you don't know anything. I go, well, that's because they're 17. They're 18, they haven't done anything in their life. They haven't done this stuff. You haven't taught them. Of course they don't know. What are you yelling about? Like, how about you show them how to do it, right? It's the same principle, but it's once they understand that and they have the grace to make mistakes, like that's what a lot of people miss. They miss that little step in there. Like, hey, people they love recognition, but they also love quality feedback. And that could be because they did a good job or they're doing a bad job, but fix it. People will be corrected. They don't mind. They do want to succeed. They want to do things right. They want a quality pat on the back. Right? Or someone to put their arm around and say, man, you're close. Let's just do this, this, and this. You'll be on target. And you walk in and they do it. And it's all problem solved.
That's one of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my leadership career is, we wanted to build this team that was biased towards action, right? A culture that was biased towards action. And then people would come to me with their recommended actions and I'd tear them apart. Right. That's stupid. That doesn't make sense. Right. Like, et cetera, et cetera. And what I didn't realize is I was actually teaching them not to come to me with those recommendations.
That's right.
When what I had to say was, I really appreciate that you went through the thinking process from beginning to end to identify a problem and a potential solution. Like, that's exactly what I want you to do. Now, let me tell you why I think you got to the wrong solution. Right. So I had to make sure that I reinforced that I appreciated that they did the work. Like, I appreciate, they were doing what I wanted them to do. They just came to a different conclusion than I would have come to, but that's okay. Right. They still did what I wanted them to do. And that's how we built this culture that's biased towards action, is by, we can disagree with your recommendation, but we want to honor the process that you went through to get there.
That's it. That's well said. That's so awesome. And I was that way too. I was a hardcore, get it done, no matter what it takes. It doesn't matter. I don't want to hear a word from you. I just want to see dirt going in the wheelbarrow. Okay, that's all I want to see. Like, we're digging holes for a living. Let's go. Let's just, don't tell me how to, I get it. So, I always tell my kids, listen, you need to be who I am, not who I was. Okay, if we're going to follow that, hopefully you've seen the change and it's been long enough, and I'm this, I'm not that. The first 20 years in business, yeah, I did some great things, but for the majority, let's kind of forget about that. Let's just leave that where it is, because I do things way better now. Whole different attitude. I understand people. I understand the value of them, how to value them. There's all these things that you have just spent the whole show talking about, and you brought it so well, to the audience here. I love it. We hit so many good points, Namaan, that I want to wrap this up with kind of some final thoughts from you. And then a way for everyone to kind of get in touch with you, follow you, pick up these links. I'll put them in the show notes. You'll give me those and whatever you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about kind of the business that I help run, when I think about, the clients that I work with, I think the number one theme that ties everything together that we've been talking about is that my job is to give my stakeholders confidence. My job is to give my customers confidence. My job is to give my prospects confidence. If I'm working in a larger organization, my job is to give my leadership confidence. A lot of people aren't necessarily looking for more information or more data. They're looking for more confidence in the decisions that they're making. And so the more work I can do ahead of time to say, okay, how can I help you? What is the work that I'm doing? How does it apply to you? What's the problem that you have that I can help solve? I think that covers for a multitude of other sins. I think a lot of business owners, a lot of professionals, they focus so much on over optimization of systems, over optimization of processes, when they don't fundamentally understand who their audience is or who their customer is. They don't fundamentally understand what their problem is. They don't fundamentally understand how what they're doing helps solve that problem. And then they don't fundamentally understand the objections that those people are going to have to working with them. And so just get the fundamentals right first, and you can always build systems and processes later. I'm not against systems. I'm not against processes, but so many people over optimize too early when they should just be focused on getting the big things right, and the optimization can come a little bit later.
Yeah, I agree, because systems, when they're there, because I always had the saying that we put people into systems, not systems into people, right? So you have to understand that dynamic, right? Like you said, your foundational stuff with your people has to be there, or the system's going to be irrelevant.
Systems
they're
are
going to interchange.
Yeah, systems are just catalysts. Processes are just catalysts. And so you've got to get the big stuff right first, and then you can put that into a system and scale it. But if you don't have a good process or the right mindset or the right message, if you put a system or a process around it, you're just scaling something that's not actually optimal. And so you first have to figure out, okay, the answers to the big questions, and then I can build a system and a process around those to scale that. But systems and processes in and by themselves are just catalysts for whatever positive or negative thing that you're doing.
Exactly. Well said. Well said. All right. Awesome. Well, how can people get a hold of you? Give us some links, give us some websites, give us, whatever.
Yeah. So people can find me on LinkedIn. So I'm Namaan Mian on LinkedIn. And I'm sure, Richard, you'll pop the link in the show notes, so I'll share that with you. But I welcome you to connect with me on LinkedIn. Always happy to have a conversation and just stay in touch. Our website is managementconsulted.com. And I think that the specific link that people are going to want to go to, it's managementconsulted.com/storytelling. And so that's really kind of everything that we've been talking about today: managing people, talking to customers, prospects. I think storytelling is the umbrella that it falls under. I think storytelling is the one skill that cannot be automated away. In a world that's becoming increasingly digital, the ability to be clear in your thinking and be clear in your communication is really what's going to set you apart. And I think we've talked a lot about that today. And so if you want to learn more about how other organizations work with us, and if you want to explore some coaching or training with us, then you can learn more at that link.
Outstanding. Namaan, this has been fantastic. I knew it would be. You delivered 100%. I love it. I think we might have a part 2 in us. I think there's a lot of stuff we didn't even touch on yet. You may see this man again, is all I'm saying, because this has been good, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. I really
appreciate you having me on. It's been an honor, and I'm looking forward to part 2.
And for everyone else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespiritcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespiritcoaching.com. Do it now.